From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Businessman there, drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. And joining me today as my co-host is the Patriot from the battle-born state, the Silver State of Nevada, my very good friend Sharon Angle. Sharon, welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you, Rick. It's great to be on this terrific Thursday with you and with all of our audience there in downtown Philadelphia and across the web. You know, I'm here in South Carolina. This is the place to be this week because of their primary caucus going down this week. And we're here at Conservative Review at Bon Secours, which is the convention center here in Greenville, South Carolina. And I'm talking with the folks here at Conservative Review about this great convention that we're going to have this evening.
And Sharon, I understand that you've been doing your work down there already, and we already have a guest lined up, ready to speak with us. So we've got to put you on hold, Sharon, for just a split second. But John, welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you for having me.
And this is John Graham, right?
That is right.
And John, you're down there with Sharon down at the Conservative Review Convention in Greensboro, South Carolina. And welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Sharon, are you there with me?
I sure am. You know, John is the senior editor for Conservative Review, and I'd like to ask John to just explain a little bit about Conservative Review, how they got started, and what it means to be the senior editor, because I know that our audience is just now getting familiar with Conservative Review.
Well, Conservative Review has been around for a little over a year now, and I'm relatively new. I actually spent the last 10 years working on Capitol Hill with a background in budget. So we're really trying to grow the organization. We're trying to push a very conservative message, and we're really trying to expand in different expertise. So they brought me on particularly to talk about economic issues, but primarily budget issues, which is what I have been doing for the last 10 years. And we're growing, and obviously this is probably our first really big event, and we're very excited for it.
Well, I heard from Dan Bongino that you're now number 3 on the conservative websites that people want to visit. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And we've come to notice you because of the scorecards that you do on the elected officials. Could you talk a little bit about how you're expanding and what that means? I know we've been directing our audience to go there just so that they can see what their congressmen and what their senators are doing. And so talk to us a little about that, your scorecard and those kinds of things.
Sure. Well, in D.C. there are a number of scorecards, and primarily they are conservative scorecard. Heritage Action has a scorecard. Freedom Works. But a lot of those are tailored for the Hills, for members of Congress, and really to hold them accountable. We do the same thing, but our scorecard is to expand to the constituency. The idea is that very few constituents have the time to monitor every vote their member takes. And so what we do with the scorecard is try to just boil it down to not only all the votes they take, but some of the top 50 votes they take, so that an individual can go to our website and they can really see what their member is doing. And we really want to put a lot of data behind it and give trend lines and try to understand how a member may become a little bit more conservative conveniently right before his election, and then perhaps become more liberal after he wins, or she. So we're really trying to provide a lot of good information to the voters because we know they don't have time to do it, so we want to help them there.
You know, John, I've loved that website because I found out that my delegation in Nevada has a solid F, and that's all the way down the line from Gina Titus, who has a 9% conservative rating, Harry Reid, 15%, and then our Republicans, the highest rating is Dean Heller, and that's a 58. That's still an F. What goes on? Tell us how that happens, that we think we've got conservatives, and they really aren't.
Well, you know, I've looked at the data, and at first you are almost skeptical, thinking, how do these guys have such low scores? But really, when you do sort of filter out the top scores, it's pretty remarkable how many of these guys will skip a vote or vote badly on a number of these really big and important votes. And so the numbers just kind of speak for themselves. Hopefully, all these scores start to take up a little bit. We're hoping members and obviously the constituents start to hold these individuals accountable, and hopefully the scorecard looks better in a few years.
Well, it's amazing to me. I was talking to a fellow from North Dakota, and he says, well, we've got very conservative representatives up here. And I said, well, go see how they rate with Conservative Review, because Mike Lee has a solid 100%. Ted Cruz has a 96. Rand Paul has a 94. Marco Rubio, not so good, 79. And he went and he said, oh my goodness, my guys have F too. And they're conservative Republicans. This is just amazing to me, John, that we let them talk to us and we really don't pay attention to what they're actually doing. We just think, well, they talk the good talk, so they must be that guy.
Well, and I think that's exactly why we provided the scorecard, because so many people think that their members are very conservative, and in some cases, some constituencies might not realize how conservative their member actually is, and they may have a very good score. So that's the whole concept of the scorecard, is to really provide and inform the constituency of how their members voting and how conservative they actually are.
So tell us how we can get there, because I want our audience to start looking right now.
Well, the easiest way to get there is to go to conservativereview.com, and it's right on the front page. You really can't miss it. So go there, and it'll take you the rest of the way.
Now, we're going to have a convention here tonight. This is the very first Conservative Review convention. Who are you expecting to show up?
Well, I'm actually not certain to what extent I can reveal the guest list, but I think it's probably fair to say you're going to have some presidential candidates here. I will say that Ted Cruz is going to be here, and I hope that's not supposed to be a secret. But we're going to have some big names here, and it's going to be obviously Mark Levin is going to be hosting it with Michelle Malkin, and so there's going to be a number of very conservative members here, and it's going to be exciting.
Now, you're the senior editor, so you do more than just watch people's vote. You actually write articles. Tell us about some of the articles that you've written and kind of where you're looking to go this week.
Well, as I said, my background is a little bit more in budget, so I write more on the budget aspects of what's going on in Congress, a little bit in economics, taxes. I've reviewed a lot of the members and the candidates' tax plans. But we're all trying to build out very unique platforms on Conservative Review, and the site is still very young, and we hope it will look a lot different even 6 months from now in our ability to provide different platforms for ideas. One thing I've always wanted to do, I've worked on Capitol Hill for 10 years with very dynamic members, but I still think that where the Republican Party has really been struggling is to do something new and creative and exciting. We've sort of been recycling the same ideas for 40 years, and that's okay if they're really good ideas. but we really need to start building out platforms for new and interesting ideas without worrying about criticism. So what I want to do with my platform, with my vertical, which is called the Ideas Factory, is really start to build a base where everyone feels comfortable of throwing out even the most crazy idea possible. We need to start a discussion in this country, and no idea should be too crazy necessarily. So each senior editor is going to have different platforms, and that's really the crux of what I'm doing. But it's going to be a lot of fun and look cool.
Rick, you should be here with me and John. If you could see John, you would be so encouraged about the direction that our country is moving now, about the people that are interested in our conservative politics. This is not an old gray-haired guy.
Well, I can tell by the voice that he's not an old gray-haired guy. And John, I'd like for you to tell our audience about the creation of Conservative Review. We here on Conservative Commando's radio show have had Daniel Horowitz, who's with you guys, on several times, and Rachel Samel does a great job on keeping me posted as far as what's important to Conservative Review. But where did it all start from? Where did the idea come from?
Well, the idea came from the two individuals you just mentioned, as well as a number of others. Like I said, I'm relatively new to the organization, but I've actually worked with, for example, I worked with Rachel Semmel years ago with Mike Pence on Capitol Hill, and that's how I got to know Rachel. And I've known Daniel for a while, and I've known a number of these other individuals from. A lot of us are former Hill staffers,
right?
So. Yeah, I mean, those two have really been instrumental in building Conservative Review, and I'm just a newbie who is trying to take a lot of credit for it.
Well, Sharon was talking with you about your scorecards for members of Congress, but you also have a scorecard for the 2016 presidential candidates that I am looking at right now. And I would encourage our audience to go there by going to www.conservativereview.com. That'll take you to the main page. You'll be able to find the 2016 presidential candidates. But from what I'm looking at here, you guys really like Ted Cruz a lot, as do we.
Well, yeah, and a number of individuals sort of accuse us of being in the camp for Ted Cruz, and I think there's a number of us here who do like Ted Cruz, although there are others who have favorites in other candidates. But, the data speaks for itself, and we don't really manipulate the scorecards. They are what they are, and there's some votes. And yes, Ted Cruz has a good conservative score.
And looking at on the issues, how you're rating these candidates on the issues: budget, spending and debt, civil liberties, education, energy and environment, foreign policy and defense, free market, health care and entitlements, immigration, moral issues, Second Amendment. I mean, geez, John, these are the conservative issues, correct?
They are, yes.
And so you have each of the presidential candidates rated here. And once again, I encourage our listeners to go to conservativereview.com, check out the presidential candidate scorecard. So, John, tell us a little bit more about your first Conservative Review convention. Give us the who, what, where, when, how, and why, and how people can find out more and participate and get there if they're close enough.
Well, if they want to find out more information, they should go to conservative.com. I think we have a full house tonight. I assume
that's great.
Available. So if individuals are in the area and would like to attend, I think that is still certainly an opportunity to do so. The event starts, I think, around 5:30. They'll probably start kicking things off around 5. And we encourage as many people to come. It's going to be a fun event. And
tell our audience where it's at.
It's right down in Greenville, and it's right downtown, and we have a huge stadium. I think the stadium holds maybe 7,000 people.
Wow.
And yeah, we're hoping for a full house.
And of course, you and Sharon and Conservative Review are in the hub of politics in South Carolina right now, and that must be a lot of fun in and of itself.
It is fun, and that's exactly why we're here. I think all the candidates are in town this week. Some have decided not to join us and have gone to the more liberal platforms CNN is putting on. And we won't mention any names, but you can probably assume who's joining those. And the press is here. There's a lot of people. A lot of conservative organizations have shown up. This is going to be a big vote in a couple days. Indeed.
And Sharon, with that, I'll throw it back to you.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Well, you kind of sparked my interest a little bit, John, when we were talking about the events here. There are several events going on right now in Greenville. So do you expect to have to share that audience, or do you think that we'll get the conservative audience right over here at Conservative Review? Do you think that the audience is going to make the choice? The candidates have made the choice, or is the audience going to make the choice?
Well, it sounds like we are expecting a very large turnout. So I think what we're seeing is speaking for itself, and we do expect a pretty conservative audience. Of course, there's a lot of interest in these other events as well. I know the CNN debate is probably going to have Donald Trump. He's certainly grabbed many people's attention. So we will probably have to share a little bit, but, it's fun. We have a packed house. Maybe, these other events will too, but we're excited who we have here today.
We speak a bit about Donald Trump since you mentioned his name. It's been interesting to us, kind of fascinating, in fact, to see how the conservatives have flocked to Donald Trump, even though we can't, at least Rick and I, and our evaluation of the presidential candidates, can't see where he really lines up on conservative issues. Are we missing something? When you did yours at Conservative Review, how did you rate him as a conservative?
Well, let me give you my personal opinion on Donald Trump, and my take is, I think, somewhat unique. Before I came to Conservative Review, I spent the last 4.5 years with Rand Paul in the Senate office, and he was also a little bit more of an outsider, and I saw the appeal he had to certain constituents. Now, obviously, he's no longer in the race, but what I'm seeing with Donald Trump feels familiar in a lot of ways, and I think what appeals to Donald Trump is he's not a politician. And in a lot of ways, in a lot of the more libertarian circles, I've seen a number of those individuals either flock to Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders, who are totally opposite on this political spectrum, I think. But I think people are just so sick of Washington politics. They're so sick of the politician that I don't think they necessarily care where these individuals stand right now. They just like that there's this complete, so antithetical towards what Washington stands for. Now, that being said, I think people will start to pay very close attention to the policy of these individuals when it gets a little bit closer to the election. And I don't think polls are telling us everything quite yet. I know Donald Trump is doing well, but I think there's still a lot to be seen on where he is on the policies.
I know he's a crowd pleaser.
Hey, Sharon, if I could jump in again, I wanted to ask you and John, have you noticed a change in conservative thinking since the death of our Supreme Court Justice? Have you seen a change in people's attitudes in the last few days? Like, oh my, this is really important. This election is probably the most important election, and that phrase may be overdone, but with the Supreme Court, the way it's lining up right now, there are going to be 2, 3, maybe 4 justices who are going to be nominated by the president to the Supreme Court in the next 4 or 8 years. So, John, have you noticed a difference in people's attitudes?
Absolutely. I think this election just got a lot more serious, particularly in the conservative movement, and with the death of Scalia, it was just we're still certainly reeling from it. Without him on the bench, we will have one of the most liberal Supreme Courts in decades, and who we nominate next will have a huge impact on our future. And so, from within Washington, I can tell you the attitude has certainly changed. People are, certainly taking this very seriously. I think the concerns of what Mitch McConnell might do in terms of allowing Obama to proceed with the nomination is certainly of a concern. Yeah, so I think absolutely this is a really big deal.
Hey, Sharon, I think I am noticing a change in people's attitudes since Justice Scalia died. I think people are looking at the candidates really hard now, as I think they should. And I also think that they should vet them hard, too.
Oh, I agree, Rick. And I think that what we need to do is stand firm as conservatives. We don't, the Senate does not have to confirm. They do not have to do anything. In fact, we'd like to see them have a little backbone. I think
I do
what
too.
John alluded to is that the angst out there, the thing that's attracting people to Trump, is this idea that he has courage. And the people want us to stand up as representatives now to the Congress, to the Senate, and have a little courage and really say, no, this is a serious appointment, and we're not just going to confirm someone that doesn't meet the standard that John Scalia or Antonin Scalia actually put forth. I think that there is that feeling. I wanted to go back a little bit with John to Trump and Scalia. How do those two things mix? And also the folks you were talking about, the Ron Paul folks being attracted to Trump. Does that mean across the nation you think that contingency, now that Rand's out of the running, will go to Trump's camp?
Yes and no. I think there is a large contingency of the former Rand supporters who are moving towards Trump. Interestingly enough, there's some of his supporters have gone to Bernie Sanders. I think for the same reason they're interested in Trump, is that he's so against the Washington establishment. But what I'm seeing and I think is encouraging is a lot of his supporters are also going to Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is certainly not a libertarian, but he is a little bit more pragmatic on the views that were really important to Rand Paul. So that's encouraging. I think I'm happy to see that.
Well, we're just about out of time with our first segment. John, we want you to tell our listeners again how they can follow you specifically, and also how they can get, you have a membership to Conservative Review. Talk a little bit about how they can follow you, get their membership, be in tune with conservative principles right now.
Well, I'll make this as simple as possible. Just go to conservativereview.com, and all the commentators are on the front page, including myself. There's membership details there. A lot of our content is free, and so people are welcome to check it out.
Thanks so much, John Gray, for joining us here at Bon Secours Convention Center in Greenville, South Carolina, and just being our guest here on Conservative Commando's radio show.
Thank you for having me.
We are coming to you live from Conservative Commando's radio network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7, and those are all .coms. Rick Trader will be right back with Sharon Angle and our next guest after this brief break.
Crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm
Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know?
Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. You could also hear rebroadcast on your computer by logging onto leadingedgeradionetwork.com, roarradio.net, highplainsdailynews.com, and you can also hear our show from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our next guest is Cliff Kincaid. He is the director of the Accuracy in Media Center for Investigative Journalism. He is a veteran journalist and media critic. He currently specializes in election coverage, the Fairness Doctrine, coverage of the UN, and coverage of financial bailouts. Cliff Kincaid, welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show.
Rick, great to be with you.
Well, we always appreciate you and the great work that Accuracy in Media does. And we've asked you to join us today to discuss an article that you just wrote entitled, How Trump Bought the Conservative Movement. And Cliff, you start out your article by saying, it has become increasingly clear that the self-funded candidate in the Republican presidential primary, Donald Trump, will destroy the GOP's chances in November if he is not the nominee. And Cliff, I got to ask you, what is leading you to these conclusions?
First of all, Rick, he's just not a conservative, number one. He hasn't been a Republican for very long. And some of his stands or positions, even the ones he has embraced over the course of the campaign, are just simply beyond the pale and totally left-wing. What I've been focusing on more recently has been the statements he's made in favor of Vladimir Putin. But then during the recent debate, he started repeating this mantra that we all always hear from the left about the Iraq War. Bush lied and people died, and it's totally harebrained, totally crazy. And I've simply come to the conclusion, based on my analysis, that if he's not going to get the Republican nomination, he'll probably run as a third-party candidate and destroy the Republican chances of winning in November. I think we've been trying to figure out what his motive is, and it may just be he's having fun. He delights in screwing up the Republican Party, but there's no reason to go along with the facade that he's somehow a conservative Republican.
Well, Cliff, I'll agree with you on that. And as far as him having fun, I actually think that's why he got into this in the first place. I'm not sure that he ever thought that he would get this far. I think he got into it, as you would say, for having fun, to enhance his reputation. Cliff Kincaid, I'll use the words that I've used here before. I see this man as a media whore. I think he was looking for a freak show, but I'm afraid that he's caught up in it now.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Rick. The other thing I do in that particular column is look at his position on the Iraq War. You know, our media are supposed to go back and look at a candidate's positions. In this case, Trump wrote a book back in 2000 entitled The America We Deserve, in which he was basically in favor of taking out Saddam Hussein. This was, of course, 3 years before George W. Bush launched the invasion of Iraq. At that time, and I've got the quotes from the book, he talked about Saddam having weapons of mass destruction, accumulating nuclear materials for a nuclear arsenal. He was very critical of Russian foreign policy, saying Russia was a nuclear Walmart, giving nuclear materials to all of our enemies. Well, my gosh, based on that, my conclusion was that he was in favor of the Iraq War before he was against it.
Well, Cliff, I got to ask, are there two different Donald Trumps? Because that's not what the Donald Trump who was in that debate last Saturday night was talking about. He was talking about Bush, how Bush lied, how the Iraq War was a mistake. I mean, are we talking about the same guy?
That's the question. You know, this guy has flip-flopped so much, but it seems like so many reporters are just intimidated and bullied into not questioning him. Now, the other thing, Rick, I did in the column was I went back and looked at some of these contributions that have been made by his Donald J. Trump Foundation. And lo and behold, a couple of years ago, I found out he was giving $50,000 to the American Conservative Union, which is the main sponsor of the annual Conservative Political Action Conference. And it happens, just so happens that year, that same time, who shows up at the CPAC to give a featured speech? Well, Donald Trump. And CPAC, the ACU call him a great patriot, portray him as a conservative. You know, he had what you might call an extreme makeover, and he's managed to convince a lot of people that now he's somehow a conservative, when the record doesn't indicate that at all.
Well, I think you're right about that. I mean, if you would follow, there are so many people that are enamored with this man right now, Cliff, and I think it is because of one and one thing only, his stance on immigration. But if you look back on Donald Trump. Okay, let's look back to Saturday night. Donald Trump was defending Planned Parenthood Saturday night at the debate. Now, surely defending Planned Parenthood is not a stance that I do believe any conservative should be making. This past summer in August, he was defending Planned Parenthood. And what also has me concerned about Donald Trump, Cliff Kincaid, is what has happened to us last Saturday before the debate with the death of Chief Justice Scalia. I mean, the next president, whoever takes office next January, is probably going to nominate between 2 and 4 justices to the Supreme Court in their terms. But again, if people do a little research, look back on what Donald Trump has said about the Supreme Court. He said his sister, who is a liberal judge, who is a supporter of Planned Parenthood, last August, he was saying that she would make an excellent selection to the Supreme Court.
That's right, Rick. You're exactly right. It's a good point to make. This guy, his whole history has been changing from this to that for business purposes. You know, one of the explanations for his flip-flop on Russia, from believing they were a threat to now thinking, well, we ought to work with Vladimir Putin. I talk about that in my article, too. It turns out he's been making business deals in Moscow. He had his Miss Universe contest beauty pageant there in 2013. Mm-hmm. He was hobnobbing and rubbing elbows with some of the Russian billionaires, one of Vladimir Putin's buddies. So I think a lot of this is just business motivated for profit.
Could very well be. Hey, Cliff, you gave us a lot of food for thought. Could you hold on for just 2 minutes? We need to take a quick break. I want to bring you back and, again, go into a little bit more detail some of the things that are in your column. Could you do that for us, please?
Yes, of course, Rick.
And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 AM in Philly and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM/FM 24/7, whole bunch of other places. Our guest this segment is Cliff Kincaid. He is the director of the Accuracy and Media Center for Investigative Journalism. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know? Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and Rick Trader. For rebroadcast, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. Log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com at 1 p.m. roarradio.net or at 9 p.m. highplainsdailynews.com. You could also hear our show from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our guest this segment is Cliff Kincaid. He's the director of the Accuracy in Media Center for Investigative Journalism, and we're discussing an article he has written, How Trump Brought the Conservative Movement. Cliff, thanks for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Cliff, I wanted to go back to your article, and you mentioned a couple of things in here I'd like you to talk about. Number one, you have in here that you warned last December that Trump was, quote, the new Arm & Hammer with dealings with the old Soviet Union and Russia that compromised his view of the Russian regime. You talked a little bit about that, but tell our audience a little bit about the analogy of Arm & Hammer.
Well, you know, this all started, Rick, when I heard Trump making these noises about how great a guy Vladimir Putin was. And, of course, Vladimir Putin reciprocated, saying he thought Trump was just sensational. It was like they had a mutual admiration society. And so I started looking into why this was happening. Why would Trump say these things? And I found all these business deals that he and his family and organization tried to do in Russia, but also going back to the old Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. And that's why I referred to that other article I wrote last December. But Arm & Hammer, it may not be an exact comparison to Trump, but Arm & Hammer was an American businessman. He was the founder of Occidental Petroleum, a big oil guy who was very much pro-Soviet. He met with a lot of Soviet leaders. He did business deals with Moscow. And he came to be portrayed and described as really a Soviet agent of influence, somebody who was really out there to make the old Soviet Union look good. Well, in the same way, again, the comparison is not exact, but in the same way, Trump has been almost like a mouthpiece for Vladimir Putin, depicting Putin as doing great things, for example, in Syria, that he's really going after the terrorists there, and the United States ought to cooperate with him. Well, that's, of course, a bunch of bunk. Putin is trying to bolster an old Soviet regime there, the Assad dictatorship. They haven't really been going after ISIS. They've been going after some anti-Assad, pro-Western rebels. So Trump, I don't know how it happened, but somewhere along the line, maybe because he wants to do business there, Trump has gone into the tank for Vladimir Putin.
Here at Conservative Commandos, we're speaking with Cliff Kincaid, director of the Accuracy and Media Center for Investigative Journalism. Cliff, in your article, you claim, and quoting you, Trump is preparing to let Europe and the Middle East deal with Russian aggression in the absence of American leadership. That means Russia gains in the Ukraine and Syria, their gains in the Ukraine and Syria will be preserved, opening the door for more Russian aggression. Cliff, it seems to me that you believe a Trump administration would be very similar to an Obama administration when it comes to the situation in the Middle East. Let Russia do what it wants to do.
And also, yeah, Rick, Middle East and Ukraine. I mean, Obama has basically let Putin do what he wants to. Trump is maybe even worse because he openly brags about being Vladimir Putin's favorite American politician. Trump has not said anything about resisting Russian aggression either in Ukraine or the Middle East. About Ukraine, he says, well, let Europe handle it. Well, the Ukrainians are looking to the United States for some weapons to defend themselves. Remember, Russia invaded Ukraine, has taken over the eastern part, and Obama has just given the Ukrainians really nothing but junk to defend themselves. It's been an absolute disgrace. But I don't see Trump doing anything more than that.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Cliff, I'm joined today. My co-host today is Sharon Angle. She's at the first ever conservative convention that's being sponsored by Conservative Review in Greenville, South Carolina. And Sharon, I wanted to bring you in this because it kind of feeds into the conversation we were having with John Gray, that conservatives really need to vet Donald Trump. I mean, look at him. Look at his past, not just what he's saying right now to get people's votes, but they really need to vet him.
Well, that's right, Rick. And I was looking at your article, Cliff, this statement by Trump that he said, I'm no warmonger, but the fact is if we decide to strike against Iraq is necessary. It's madness not to carry the mission to its conclusion. How does that contrast with what we heard him say in the debate just last week?
Well, it's completely at odds with it, Sharon. Like I say, in that article, he seems to be for the Iraq war 3 years before it started. Yet in the debate last week, he was against it. Remember, they used to make fun of John Kerry when he talked about a bill that was in front of Congress. He said, I was for the bill before I was against it. Everybody laughed and said, wow, what a fool, what an idiot. Well, Trump has basically taken the same position, or I should say both positions, on the Iraq war.
Well, and you say that Trump has fooled a lot of people, at least a quarter of those voting in the Republican primaries. But tell us, how do we get these facts out? You said even that you thought he should probably be running in the Democrat primary.
Yeah, it's tough. We've been digging these things out about Trump at Accuracy and Media. But like I say, Trump has spread a lot of money around. He gave the American Conservative Union $50,000. He gave the American Spectator magazine $25,000. There's probably a lot more money he's given to various conservatives, and this has caused people to shy away. Maybe they don't want to attack him or criticize him. But I think a number of these people in the Republican primary who are voting for him, they don't understand. They don't know what he's really up to. And probably some of them do like his position on immigration. And he's taken some good positions on some of these issues. But they really owe it to themselves to get to the bottom of this thing and understand how he's really flim-flamming them and playing them for fools.
Now, is he really flim-flamming him, or is it, as you say, Rick and I will be at CPAC this year, and you say some pretty interesting things about the ACU Foundation, the American Spectator Foundation, these groups that Donald Trump has given money to. Talk about how that has come back to help Donald Trump.
Well, in the case of the ACU, and I've been to many CPACs over the years. I went to CPAC during the 80s when Ronald Reagan used to speak to it. And I'm going to be at the CPAC in March of this year, too, with one of my sons. It's a great gathering, but the fact is that CPAC has helped create this perception that Donald Trump is a conservative. And as I indicated earlier, they featured him at several CPACs, I think starting in 2013. And they portray him as a conservative. And, of course, that sends the message to a lot of people out there that, well, if he's good enough for CPAC, then he must be a conservative. But they don't know, and this is what I document in my most recent article, that the ACU got $50,000 from him. Maybe that had something to do with his invitation to come and speak.
Well, I know you give some credibility to that old joke about we know what you are. We're just now trying to decide what the price is. And what you have here in your article is the price here for the ACU is $50,000, and American Spectator was about $25,000. Is that really what's going on here? I mean, this is just shocking and outrageous, isn't it?
I think it is, and you know, it's one thing to give them a speaking slot, but the other thing is, as I point out in the article, the ACU chairman, this guy named Matt Slapp, he's been going all over the cable TV channels talking about how Trump's a conservative and he'd be a good president. Well, you know, I just think he's made a fool of himself. And then this is a guy who runs a lobbying firm called Cove Strategies. I don't know if he's working for Trump or not, but it sounds suspicious to me.
Hey, Sharon, I think I found the problem that we've been making here at Conservative Commandos. You know, we scrape to stay on the air. We haven't sold out, Sharon. Maybe that's our problem. Hey, Cliff, we got to wrap up. I want to thank you for joining us. We always enjoy talking with you and Roger and everyone else at Accuracy Media. Could you please tell our audience where they can go to follow your work?
I appreciate that, Rick and Sharon. It's very simple. Go to aim.org, AIM.org, and sign up for our free newsletter.
Cliff Kincaid, Director of the Accuracy Media Center for Investigative Journalism. We want to thank you so much for joining us. Well, hey, Cliff, we'll see you down there at CPAC.
I will. Look forward to it.
All right. Take care. God bless. And you are listening to Conservative Commandos with Sharon Angle and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM/FM 24/7. Don't go away. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with David Drucker. He's a senior congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Be right back.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know?
Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, at 1 p.m., roarradio.net, or at 9 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. You could also hear our show from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. And Sharon, I believe you're back with me. And Sharon Angle, we do have our next guest with us. And will you please make the introduction?
I surely will. It's such an honor to introduce David M. Drucker, a senior congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner. He has previously reported for CQ Roll Call and the Los Angeles Daily News. David, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Good to be here. Thank you.
David, you wrote an article, and we all want to know the answer to this question, by the way. How Scalia's death will reshape 2016. Could you just kind of take it from there? I can't tell you what a shock this was to the whole nation, and now it just seems to have put us all in with the questions. What's going to happen if we get the wrong president?
Yeah, well, look, I think there are a lot of Republicans that are hoping that the discussion over who should replace Antonin Scalia on the Supreme Court will bring a degree of seriousness to the Republican presidential primary and cause voters to value candidates with conservative records that have not only, speak in terms of their conservative beliefs, but have some record of proving that over time. And, that's definitely the case for many Republicans, including those Republicans specifically that oppose Trump. We'll see if that is the case. We don't know yet if that's going to happen, but we do know that both Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio have incorporated this issue into their advertisements in South Carolina. and they're trying to make an issue out of this. There's some of the other candidates are trying to do the same. For his part, Trump has said that he agrees with Senate Republicans that a new justice should not be confirmed and placed on the court until after the election, and the next president can do so. We'll see how this shapes out.
Well, I was looking at your article, and one of the things that stuck out was voters always value electability in presidential contests. This idea of you're not electable, but you have the right ideas. Could you go into that just a little bit about this idea of electability and how that relates to the presidential candidates that we've got right now?
Yeah, when I'm on the road and I'm talking to voters, I mean, no matter who they're voting for, ultimately they always talk about the issue of electability. In other words, who can win in the general election? Because voters tend to, hope that, the party that they affiliate with wins the election. So they do examine the issue of electability, and it, in some elections, plays a bigger influence than in other elections. It sometimes is a bit of a misnomer, because usually voters don't vote for somebody that they think will lose. In other words, it's true, at least with some of the minor parties, that they know that their candidate is never going to win, but they're just so ideologically committed and don't like the other choices that they vote that way anyway. But, if you're a Democrat or Republican and you decide in a primary to vote for a particular candidate, you usually have a lot of hope and believe that they are electable. So it sort of depends on whether or not, like in this case, people were to look at the raised stakes in the election given the Supreme Court vacancy and say to themselves, I've really wanted to vote for this guy, but I'm questioning his ability to win, so therefore I'm going to vote with the other guy that I also find acceptable, just wasn't my first choice. That's possible that something like that can happen. But what I was pointing out, or what I'm telling you, is that a lot of times when somebody's settled on a candidate, it's because they also think they can win.
Now, should we be concerned about electability in a primary? We're trying to pick the very best person in the primary, and shouldn't we worry about electability after we get through the primaries, or what do you think about that?
Well, that's up to, look, the voters make that determination. I think that if as a voter you're concerned about winning the general election, you should take it into account, because sometimes the best person on the issues you care about most simply is not well positioned to win a general election. It could be for all sorts of reasons. It could be because they hold particular views that are going to be rejected by the voters. It could be because they simply aren't raising enough money and putting together an organization that prepares them to pivot to the general election and do well. There could be all sorts of reasons. But it's true that sometimes the person that best aligns with you on your values simply is not going to make a good general election candidate, and that's just the way it is.
Okay, so when we're talking about our primaries, and we're doing them right now, here I am in South Carolina. In fact, we're talking about this one right here, right now. What is the general consensus? Who of all these candidates that we have is the most electable, and does that give us the best fellow for making the Scalia appointment, or the one to replace Scalia? How does that play into this?
Well, so this is, I think, what Republicans are trying to work out. I tend to find that whoever is leading in the polls in a primary is viewed by most of the voters as the most electable, because that's why most of the voters, you don't tend to see a majority of voters supporting a candidate that they simultaneously think can't win in November. So if you're looking at South Carolina, what you're likely to find is that the three leading candidates, which would be Trump, Cruz, and Rubio, are probably viewed as the three most electable candidates in a general election. Now, in terms of who would be best for appointing Supreme Court Justice, I haven't seen a specific polling question among South Carolina Republican voters, people likely to vote Saturday in the Republican primary. But there are probably some differences of opinion. I think there are some people that believe that Trump is a very good judge of talent and character and know-how, and would pick the right person for the court. There are a lot of Republicans that don't trust him because he has a lengthy record of supporting Democrats and Democratic policies, and are going to look at Cruz as a former litigator before the Supreme Court as the Solicitor General of Texas, and a constitutionalist going back many years, as the person best positioned to pick somebody in line with Scalia, and other people would probably agree that although Rubio doesn't have the particular expertise before the Supreme Court, that his lengthy record of conservatism positions him to do the same. So, I don't know how the voters are going to come down on this, and we don't even know how much they're going to value this in their choice. I'm sure there'll be some exit polling on Saturday, and we'll be able to find out.
Okay, so we're thinking now that we've got Trump, Cruz, Rubio. Who can beat Hillary, and then who can beat Bernie Sanders? And we know that they're not going to choose someone who will embrace what Scalia stood for. At least we don't assume they're going to do that. Which one of ours on the other side are most likely to replace Scalia with the conservative, or will we get someone like Justice Roberts, who we're not sure we can count on him?
Well, I mean, we're just simply not going to know this until we see how this plays out. Especially if Senate Republicans hold the line and don't allow a confirmation for the remainder of Obama's term, then we have to see if Republicans win the election. We have to see who wins the election. And then go through.
I'm sorry, David, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, and then they're going to go through a vetting process, and we'll see who they put forward. But you never really know how this turns out. I mean, Chief Justice Roberts was pretty universally thought of on the right until the two Obamacare decisions. In fact, nobody's really argued with anything else he's really done except those, but it's left a bad taste in the mouth of many conservatives.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we are speaking with David Drucker. He's a senior congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner. David, you bring out another great point in your article. We just don't need to worry about who the nominee is or who's going to win the election, but you also point out the Republicans are fighting to maintain control of the Senate in 2016. And of course, whoever controls the Senate is going to control who ratifies any nomination made to the Supreme Court.
Well, to a degree. I mean, it certainly would help Republicans if they maintain control of the Senate, but if the next president's a Democrat, then the Democrat's still going to nominate somebody who is left of center, and at some point the Republicans are going to have to relent and agree to let through a nominee as long as they are qualified for the job. And just the same way Senate Democrats under George W. Bush had to let through John Roberts and Samuel Alito at a time when those picks by George W. Bush were lauded on the right. They had long conservative records, and the Democrats still had to relent. I think this is a good election year strategy for Senate Republicans. I think they can get away with it because we have less than a year to go in Obama's term, and there's an election in November. But if, for whatever reason, Republicans hold the Senate but lose the presidential election, which it may not even work that way, because if you lose the presidency, the way the math is set up, you may end up losing the Senate anyway. But just for the sake of argument, they're not going to be able to just refuse, because then it becomes an election year issue heading into 2018 that goes against them, and you can't leave the corn vacant forever like that.
In your article, you talk about Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, along with swing states like New Hampshire and Ohio. Those are Democratic-leaning states. The GOP is trying to hold the seat vacated by Rubio, and Democrats need to pick up 5 seats to take back control of the Senate. How is this looking so far to you?
Well, it's a little too early to know for sure, but, the same way 2014 was a tough map for Democrats, where they were defending a lot of seats in Republican territory. I mean, that's kind of the way it is for Republicans this time around, and you've got on top of that the issue of presidential election turnout. So, you know, Ohio, Florida, and New Hampshire are legitimate swing states. So if the presidential race goes well for Republicans, it puts them in a really good position to hold there. But, you know, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, they haven't gone Republican for president in 20, 30 years, depending on the state we're talking about, or longer. And even with a good year for Republicans, there's no guarantee that the turnout and the Senate races work in their direction.
David M. Drucker, senior congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Please tell our audience how they could keep track of your work.
WashingtonExaminer.com or my Twitter feed at David M. Drucker.
David, again, thank you so much for joining us today. You take care. God bless.
Anytime. Thank you.
And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philly and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7. You don't go away. Sharon and I will be right back.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know?
Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, at 1 p.m., roarradio.net, or at 9 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. And I'm joined today by Sharon Engel. She's at the first ever conservative convention that's sponsored by Conservative Review. They are in Greensboro, South Carolina. And Sharon, you have our next guest with us, so please make the introduction.
Yes, I'm proud to introduce Dan Bongino. He is the contributing editor to the Conservative Review. He's also written a book, Life Inside the Bubble, and he has his own radio program, The Renegade Republican with Dan Bongino. Dan, welcome to Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Hey, good to be here. Good to be here.
Well, tell us, how did you get affiliated with Conservative Review, and what does it mean to be a contributing editor?
Well, contributing editor, I write for the program and I produce a podcast every day. But it's interesting. They were looking for, when they first started, that's why I call the show Republican. They were looking for people who were kind of renegades outside establishment, thinking in Washington, D.C., who were willing to call out phonies on both sides of the aisle. And as you and I both know, there were many phonies. And the owner of the company called me up and said, "Hey, want to jump on the team?" And I said, "I'm more than happy to do it, as long as you can promise me that we're going to go after both teams here when they don't stick to our principles." I'm more than happy to do it. So I really like it.
Well, you talk about the owners of Conservative Review. I was really interested because you said they're based in a place that I know well. Where is that?
Yeah, Nevada. That's actually the home base of the headquarters. And you have a couple people running in Nevada under the Republican banner that learn what it's like to be an actual Republican. That's the problem. We got a lot of these men and women out there running under our banner and taking our assets and our volunteers and our donors' money, and they go in there and they vote like Democrats. It's awful. You know, when people are given the choice, it's important. When people are given the choice between Democrats and Democrat Biden, I don't think that's a big shock. They're going to vote, with the Democrats. They're not going to vote Democrat Biden. They're going to vote Republican. It's just not going to happen. And we have to get away from this idea that this will be moderation. What is moderation even think? Conservatism doesn't need the ability to spend money, think your own health care, think where your kids go to school. There's nothing dramatic about that. It's just the idea that everybody gets really simple stuff. People are so overcomplicated. It's frustrating.
Well, you've written a book, Life Inside the Bubble. What's the bubble? I was real interested in your background here, Dan.
Oh, well, I've been with Secret Service agent for 12 years. Actually, it's been a while. This is my first book. And the idea of the D.C. bubble, what I write about in the book, initial book, I just put out my second book, but the idea that the President of the United States, President Obama, he lives like remember the movie The Truman Show? Remember that, Jim Carrey, where everybody's acting around this Jim Carrey character. He doesn't realize that it's all an act. He's the only one who's got it on the game. Well, that's Obama. I mean, everybody's acting. It's this bubble of the yes men, yes women. And, if you think out there that this is about you, that these people go to D.C., they have any allegiance to you, or most of them don't. They go there to get money. And when you have yes men surrounding you, play you don't know, people are acting. You just think you're doing the right thing all the time. I wanted to expose. The book did well. I was really happy.
And I'm sure we're proud of you for exposing this too, Dan. I wanted to ask you. You have run before for office. Where did you run? Tell us what you ran for, and are you going to run again?
Am I going to run? $64 million question. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to run again. I ran for the U.S. Senate in Maryland, lost that race. And then I came back and ran for Congress against the wealthiest Democrat, John DeLay. Well, I'm still friends with him. I disagree with him, but he wasn't at that time. And I ran an overwhelmingly Democratic district, and no one gave me a chance. Not one president in the black crowd that said the race was a big Democrat. And we wound up winning the race on election day by 50 minutes to vote. We lost on the absentee count 5 days later, which was really tough. So, will I run again? I don't know. I'm not so sure. I really like conservative people. I like what we're doing over there. I think about it a lot, and I don't know. We'll see. If something opens up, I'll give it a look. I'm sure you get that question a lot, too.
Certainly. I think we all do. We're looking for courageous conservatives that are willing to stand up, tell the truth, and go not to be inside the bubble, but really to represent the people that elected them. That's right, top the bubble. My co-host in this show is Rick Trader. Rick, I want to bring you in here. Do you have some questions for Dan?
Yeah, Dan, I just wanted to...
South Carolina.
Yeah, Dan, great to have you with us once again here on Conservative Commandos. Give us an idea, what are you seeing there at the first ever conservative convention that is being sponsored by Conservative Review? What's it look like there? What are people talking about?
Well, it's funny. When we started the event...
Dan, could you speak up a little bit? We're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, when we initially started the idea, we lit the fire for this. It was designed to be kind of a small gathering of conservatives where we could all have, people speaking, candidates, and it exploded into this massive convention. We had such demand for it. And we get out there and we deal with emails and we deal with people on our podcast and tweets and Facebook messages, and there is a frustration directed at that is incomparable right now. I haven't seen anything like it in my years on this planet and 37 plus years being conscious of it. I haven't seen anything like it. And it's bipartisan. And I'll tell you, I can give you an example of it. One of the strangest things I have ever seen in politics is this phenomenon I'm seeing now where you have Trump supporters who, you ask them who their second choice is, and they say Bernie Sanders. And you say, what? I mean, have you seen this? This is just...
Well, is that telling, Dan, my knee-jerk reaction to that is that's telling. That these people who are the Trump supporters out there really are not conservatives.
No, it's. I don't even. I'll be honest with you. I'm not even sure they're not conservative. I just think that they feel like they voted for conservatives in the past and have been so sidelined that they just, the best example I can use is the arsonist versus fireman analogy. There are times in D.C. you want a fireman to put out some fires, and there are times you want an arsonist to go start something. People want an arsonist, and I don't. It's not that they're not conservative. I mean, some of them you're right. I don't mean to challenge you on that. Some of them you're right. They're probably just not conservative at all. But some of the people I talk to, I know are conservative because they've been involved in conservative campaigns, and they're like, hey, listen, I supported a conservative in the past. Pardon my language, but screwed me over, and I'm just done with it. I'm not interested, and that's it. And I'm just voting for someone who's going to tear it down. And, D.C. created this animal, and they're going to have to deal with it.
Dan, do you think the things have been ramped up since the death of Antonin Scalia?
Yeah, I think you've seen it in the moving polls numbers for Ted Cruz. I think all of a sudden, a lot of people out there got a really horrible, tragic wake-up call. I mean, it shocked me. I don't know about you, but I was sitting in my office getting ready to do a phone interview, and one of my friends on Slack, which is our office kind of Twitter thing, he sends out a channel tweet saying, hey, listen, Antonin Scalia just died. I tell you, I almost fell off the chair.
Yeah, that's...
First you have the response where you feel awful for the family, of course, but for the country, everything. I mean, Antonin Scalia was a warrior for liberty and freedom.
All right. Dan Bongino, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Please tell our audience how they could follow you and also listen to your show.
Oh, thanks a lot. Well, my book's available at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. It's called The Fight. That's my second book. And I am at DBongino on Twitter if you want to send me a tweet. I read them all, folks. So comments, criticisms, whatever you got, I'd be more than happy to hear you out.
Dan Bongino, again, thank you for joining us. You take care and God bless.
You got it. Talk to you soon.
And you are listening to Conservative Commandos with Sharon Angle and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 247.com. Don't go away. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Brent Shear. He's a staff writer for the Washington Free Beacon. Be right back.
Crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sport Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sport Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts, please check out our website, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. At 1 p.m., roarradio.net, or at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, highplainsdailynews.com. Sharon, I understand we have our next guest with us, and will you please make the introduction?
Yes, it's my honor to introduce Daniel Horowitz, who's the senior editor of Conservative Review. He has previously worked with and written for Madison Project, Red State, and Breitbart. Welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show, Daniel.
Hey, Sharon, it's great to finally meet you. You know, I was just thinking, as we're setting up this interview, it's so much better to be on conservative talk radio than be in the Senate. Isn't it good the way things worked out?
Well, sometimes that's true. Sometimes it's just the way we move from one thing to the next. You know, Rick Trader has been a great friend of mine for a long time, and he offered me this place, Just Have a Voice. And I think that's what you have here at Conservative Review, as a voice as well. And we want to get that voice out today. So tell people about what it means to be the senior editor for Conservative Review.
You know, this really ties into it. And as I was telling you, Sharon, there's such a sense of empowerment nowadays with social media. You're able to connect online with the grassroots activists, and you could talk over the political class. Keep in mind, when you're just one senator, one congressman, even if you're a good one who follows the Constitution, you're limited in your influence. So, you know, we are really... What we had in mind by setting up this convention, everyone thinks it's all about the presidential election, because in South Carolina, actually, we have our southern office in Greenville. But whoever you're supporting, what we don't want to do is lose our principles. You know, everyone likes candidate A, candidate B, and each one has their flaws. Men are fallible, but the principles are timely. And at Conservative Review, what we've been doing over the last year and a half is applying the constitutional principles that we all hold dear to the very specific issues taking place in Congress, going on in the political world, and we should not surrender any one of them comport to any one candidate. So this event is going to showcase Mark Levin, Sean Hannity, Mike Lee, Dave Bratt, Louis Gohmert. I mean, people that have been fighting the cause long before it was cool. And it has really been, it's truly amazing. I tell everyone that you turn the clock back 15, 20 years ago, these congressional members would do all sorts of shenanigans and get away with it. At Conservative Review, we'll zap them within 30 seconds. We'll see what they're doing at a committee markup. We'll get the intel, put it out to the grassroots so, people can make a difference. And you look at the election results so far and, whatever you perceive of each candidate, what people are not voting for is the establishment status quo.
Well, we're so glad you're doing this, Daniel, and it's been exciting to watch the scorecard go up and how it actually changes with each vote. Your member in Congress or your member in the Senate may go up a few points or go down a few points as far as their conservative rating goes. And you do base that on what they actually do, not on just what they're saying. So you are paying attention to their actions, not just their words. Have you seen this really bear some fruit yet? Or are we still in that, just that formative stage? Because I know when I look at it, there's only about 15 members in the Senate that have an above F rating, and about 35 in the House of Representatives that have an above F rating. In fact, my whole delegation in Nevada are all F. So tell me, are you bearing any fruit yet, or are we just getting started?
We are bearing a lot of fruit. And Sharon, you know this well from running in a contested primary in Nevada. Here's the problem that to me was really the impetus in helping found Conservative Review. I did a lot of PAC work and was very involved in races such as yours, where you had contested primaries, you had a constitutionalist running, but then you have establishment candidates, but they don't put on a jersey saying, I'm an establishment candidate. Everyone runs as a conservative in a primary. That is, you're seeing that in the presidential election. Nobody's for open borders. Everyone thinks Obamacare is the worst thing in the world. Taxes need to be low. Regs need to be cut. Everyone says the same thing. But what do they do when the cameras are not on them? Everyone pays attention to these presidential debates. But we actually followed these candidates for years, what they were doing in the Senate, what they were doing in their other respected offices. So this is why the scorecard is so important. A, it touches on the discerning vote, not the freebies, the ones that really separate the men from the boys, the men from the girls, the women from the girls. And in addition to that, we roll it out over 6 years. What I started to see in some of the primaries is you could almost plot it on a graph. Whatever members would be what's called in-cycle, 2 years, let's say that a senator is now up for election, oh boy, would they become a born-again conservative right away. Everything you want to hear from them, they're great, they're voting great, and then you reelect them, and then they go back into Mitch McConnell's clutches, and you lose them. So we averaged out over 6 years, so they can't, we saw some very respected conservative organizations, and Senator running in Kansas put out a TV ad counting his A score. Now, the problem is he had a D for the previous 4 years, but he made sure to vote the right way that year, and I could tell you, since being reelected, he has gone back to his old ways. So knowledge is power, and we need, look, everyone has full-time jobs. They don't have time to get involved in this nitty-gritty. People actually work for a living, and, we put out all the details. And one other thing, Sharon, we actually have full profiles. These are not just drive-by mathematical scores. You could click on your senator. We tell you their biographical information, what bills they've introduced, what they do on committee, what makes them tick, what they've really done. We actually have a section I want you guys to take a look at, what you don't see on the scorecard. These are some stuff we happen to know from staffers, from our own experience, what the members really do and say when the microphones and cameras are turned off.
Well, this is such valuable information, Daniel. And again, I have to say, I'm so glad. In fact, that's the reason that I'm here, is I got my membership about 3 months ago when I first became aware of Conservative Review. I went right on to conservativereview.com, and I joined up because I wanted to see the inside stuff that you guys really do write about. And I found that what you're doing is just giving us the facts. You're not coloring this at all. This is actually what's going on, and it's like you said, there is a period of time when they don't want to lose an establishment member, so they'll give him a pass vote, or they'll say, we've got enough votes, you go ahead and vote Conservative so you can win your election, and we'll cover for you this time. I want to bring our co-host in, Rick Trader, right now. I know he's got questions for you too, Dan.
Dan, thanks for being back with us here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and congratulations for what's going on right now down there in Greenville, South Carolina. I mean, for a relatively new organization, Conservative Review has made some great strides.
I'm telling you, this has been a year we could have never have imagined we'd be here today. Look, I couldn't imagine I'd be telling you Mark Levin's my boss. I mean, this is unbelievable, and I don't mean to tease your listeners here, but in a couple hours there will be a very big announcement for Mark. You're not going to want to miss that. I am going to tease you here. I can't. Word to secrecy here. I cannot divulge more information, but we're going to take this to the next level very soon.
Well, Daniel, for people like me who are about 1,000 miles from Greenville, South Carolina right now, and I would not be able to make it there in the next few hours, is there a way that we could see or hear what's going on?
Sure. You go to conservativereview.com website. First of all, I believe C-SPAN will be covering it. There'll be several online streamings. So you go to conservativereview.com, you could find that, and it will be as if you're in the stadium. We're going to, like I said, Mark Levin, Sean Hannity, Mike Lee, Ted Cruz will be speaking, Ben Carson, and an array of conservative leaders. This is about upholding our principles before this election. Whoever wins the nomination, we cannot water down what it means to be a conservative, because maybe we don't get the best nominee this time, but we cannot water it down, and we still have to strive for as close to what our founders envisioned in our Constitution as possible and work towards it in future elections.
Well, Daniel, I think that's very important, because I think the mistake a lot of conservatives made after the victories of 2010, they thought, okay, that's it, job done. So don't have to be in this fight anymore. I can go back to my living room, sit in my comfortable chair. And what happened is, just 2 years later, we get the re-election of Barack Obama. So it is an ongoing struggle. We have an ongoing struggle. We can't sit back when we have a victory or two.
No, and not only can't we sit back, I mean, we are losing this party. I mean, the party is hanging by a thread. So if the grassroots do not engage, we will not have a voice. But on the other hand, the good news is, because of outlets like Conservative Review and other patriot outlets, we are actually making strides. The people get it. I mean, you can't deny that. When you look at the election results, nobody wants the establishment anymore.
Right.
So at least the information has gotten out there. But now we got to convert that into electoral victories, and then you got to keep up on the issues. I mean, you look at the Supreme Court fight, and let me tell you, don't think for a minute, despite the tough rhetoric from Mitch McConnell GOP leaders, that they're going to hold the line. I can tell you they will not hold the line. The cracks are already showing, and if they do not hear from the grassroots, I can guarantee you Obama will have a sixth vote on the Supreme Court.
Well, Daniel Horowitz, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. I am on your website, conservativereview.com, right up there. Tune in at 7 p.m. to watch the Conservative Convention live streams. I'll be there, Daniel.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You take care. God bless.
God bless.
And Sharon, we won't take a break right now. I'll ask Mr. John Forsyth Jr. to get our next guest on. And Sharon, just hold it there with me, all right? And you are listening, I'll just make this brief announcement. You are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and Rick Trader. And we're coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia. That's where I am. Sharon Angle is at the Conservative Convention in Greenville, South Carolina, which is sponsored by Conservative Review. And Sharon, we do have our next guest with us, and will you please make the introduction?
I certainly will. It's been an honor all day today for me to be able to introduce these wonderful conservatives that we have. And our next guest is Brent Shear. He's the staff writer for the Washington Free Beacon. He's graduated from the University of Virginia, where he studied foreign affairs and politics. And prior to joining the Beacon, he worked for WTOP and the American Enterprise Institute's Political Corner. Brent is originally from New York City and now lives in Washington, D.C. Brent, welcome to Conservative Commando's radio show.
Yeah, great being on.
Now, you wrote an article, Hillary Clinton goes back to the well and hits up financial industry for fundraisers. Clinton attends the morning fundraiser at BlackRock for first Wall Street fundraiser of the day. What's Hillary doing on Wall Street? I didn't think that Hillary Clinton and Wall Street went together. She's always talking about the rich and how we need to make sure that they pay their fair share. How does she and Wall Street go together?
Well, they go together because they like giving her a lot of money. This was back on Tuesday when, after taking a few weeks off from hitting up Wall Street and others in the financial industry for cash, she was forced back there, largely, in my opinion, because Bernie Sanders is just raising boatloads of money from small donors across the country. So it was actually a fundraiser that she had initially canceled because it was right before the Iowa caucuses when Bernie was really making her Wall Street money an issue. And the fundraiser was with BlackRock on Tuesday morning. And BlackRock, for those that don't know, is a big New York financial asset firm. It actually holds more assets than any other firm in the country. So when it comes to Wall Street, BlackRock is as Wall Street as it gets.
Now, that doesn't make sense to me, Brent. And the reason it doesn't make sense is because you would think that businessmen would be conservatives. They wouldn't be going for candidates like Hillary Clinton. Are they hedging their bets, or do they truly think that she's going to be good for the economy?
Well, I'm not necessarily sure it would be good for the economy as much as good for the individual people. BlackRock, for example, the head of BlackRock has said personally that he thinks that a Clinton victory in 2016 might make him Treasury Secretary. His name's Larry Fink. So, I mean, whether or not they think it's good for the economy on the whole, I think the pattern that we see with Clinton, both Hillary and Bill going back to the 90s, is that people give money in hopes that they're going to win favor from the Clintons. And if you're betting that Clinton has a good chance to win the 2016 election, then she's a pretty good person to have to owe a favor, you know?
Wow. Well, you mentioned the Black Ivy Group, too. So is this all about getting the black vote and how Al Sharpton is kind of paving the way for her? Is that what we're seeing here?
Well, no, the BlackRock Group and Black Ivy Group don't necessarily have to do with the black vote. The Black Ivy Group is another investment firm. It is actually focused on making investments in sub-Saharan Africa, but the firm was founded by Cheryl Mills, who is Hillary Clinton's closest aide going back to the White House, but really she was chief of staff for Hillary Clinton's when she was in the State Department. So that's just another investment firm with ties to the Clintons that is giving money to Hillary Clinton.
Well, and you mentioned the Artemis Real Estate Partners. How do they fit into this picture?
Just another host of this fundraiser. And again, the ties between these financial firms and the Clintons are beyond just giving money. I mean, the co-founder of the Artemis Real Estate Partners, which is an investment firm focusing on real estate investments, is Deborah Harmon, and she founded the group with Penny Pritzker, who is one of the all-time big donors to the Democratic Party. And, I mean, she gave so much money that Barack Obama made her Commerce Secretary. So it's just an endless number of firms. I went through all of her fundraisers a few weeks ago and found that over 30 of the hosts for fundraisers for Hillary Clinton in this iteration of her political life and the presidential race, over 30 of the fundraisers were hosted by members of the financial industry. So when she tries to fight back against Bernie Sanders and say that, you know, the financial industry isn't looking to get anything back from her and she doesn't have ties to Wall Street, it's just a complete lie, and there's no way to get around the amount of money that she's taking from Wall Street.
Do we have any idea just how much what's the bottom line figure for this payback for power or whatever? It looks like that's what's going on anyway, is paybacks for power. So how much is it that we're talking about?
Well, it's hard to tell exactly how much money each fundraiser brings in for the Clinton campaign, largely just because of the way that fundraising figures are created. I mean, it's hard to say how many people these Wall Street fundraisers are bringing in for each event they hold with Clinton. In the past, we've seen that she's taken in her political career millions from Wall Street. And if you're going to also take into account the speeches that she gave in the years after she left the State Department, I mean, that number goes up by another few million. And that's due to names such as Goldman Sachs and others. But it's been millions that have gone to the Clintons from Wall Street. And that's what makes Bernie Sanders' attack about her ties to Wall Street such an effective one in the Democratic Party today.
Hey, Sharon, if I could jump in. And by the way, we're speaking with Brett Shear. He's a staff writer for the Washington Free Beacon. Brett, where's the media on this? And my gosh, if Clinton's name was something like Bush or Romney, I'm sure all of the media would be talking about this. Am I right?
Yeah, I'd say you're definitely right. I mean, Romney was getting similar fundraisers, but, I mean, the hypocrisy just wasn't there. Romney wouldn't walk around talking about the villains at Bain Capital, while Hillary is doing just that. She goes around talking about how dangerous Wall Street has been for the country, yet all her best friends that are giving her all this money are Wall Street donors. So it really is preposterous that nobody's talking about this. But the one person that is talking about it is Bernie Sanders, and he's doing it very effectively. And we see that her lead against him is continuing to shrink. Mm-hmm. And part of it is because he's getting this message that she's a hypocrite when it comes to her rhetoric on the financial industry. And in the current environment in the Democratic Party, where Wall Street and finance gets treated like the devil, everybody's a socialist, they love anti-Wall Street figures such as Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, having ties to Wall Street is not an acceptable thing for a candidate who wants to win in the Democratic primary.
So that kind of almost answers, or maybe you can elaborate when I say, how is this playing out with her base? Well, I mean, how, her ties, her Wall Street ties, is her, with her base, is her base starting to hear this?
Yeah, I mean, they are, but it seems as though her line on the Wall Street issue is that, yes, she gets money, but no, it's not because they expect favors. And she also says that.
Baloney, and I think you point that out in your article here, Brent, when you talk about previous backers of the Clintons end up being things like ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, hello.
Yeah, I mean, of course it's baloney, and I think everybody knows that, and I think that's why Hillary's starting to get in a little bit of trouble because, I mean, it seems to me as though, despite the amount of support that Hillary obviously has from the media and has historically gotten from the media, they also are giving Bernie Sanders a fair shot and asking her these questions continually because it's such baloney and because she can't give a good answer on it.
Yeah.
And until she finds a good way to answer these questions, or until she finds another place to get money, which she's got.
Hey, Brad, I'm sorry to do this to you, but we're kind of like out of time. Please tell our audience where they could go to follow your work.
Freebeacon.com. We'll be covering this throughout the election.
Keep us posted, will you, please?
Yeah, sure will.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate your efforts.
Yeah, no doubt. Of course.
Sharon Engel.
This is Sharon Engel with Conservative Commando's radio show, and I'm here with Benjamin Watson. Benjamin, tell us your claim to fame. I know, but I want my listeners to know.
My claim to fame is I've been married for 10 years, and we have 5 kids, 7 and under. My other claim to fame, people say I play a little football. That's about it. But I've been in the NFL for 12 years now, most recently with the New Orleans Saints.
And Benjamin, you're here with me here at the Conservative Review Convention. Why are you here? Are you a conservative, or are you going to be a speaker? Why are you here? We're not playing football tonight.
Yeah. Well, I am from the state of South Carolina. Went to high school here in South Carolina as well as elementary school. But Dr. Carson's a friend of mine. He and Candy have been more than gracious to me and my wife, and I'm just here hanging out with him for the day. We were in Columbia earlier today at South Carolina State University. He spoke there, and I was able to speak with the football team as well down there. Flew up here to Greenville, and we'll be here at the Conservative Review tonight. So I'm just here to support him, but also just to see how this whole politics thing goes down. It's very interesting so far. Having a good time.
Okay, so why is Ben Carson your candidate? Now, I got a little clue because when I asked you what your claim to fame was, you said I have 5 kids. Yes. So I know that you have your priorities straight, Benjamin Watson. Tell me now, for a man that has his priorities straight, why is Ben Carson your candidate?
Well, he's a man I greatly respect, and I can remember being younger, hearing about him, the things that he had done with his gifted hands, and the type of neurosurgeon that he was, and all those things. But having a chance to meet him and speak with him, and I respect him from a level of integrity, leadership, honesty, all those things that you want in any type of leader. And so for me, meeting someone like that, knowing someone like that, knowing that they're going to run for an office to lead our country, those are the attributes that are most important to me. I don't claim to know everything about all the topics and everything like that, but I do know a man of wisdom and a godly man when I see one, and somebody that can be trusted. And so I think that is what our country really needs. People that we can trust, people who put God first, people who want to honor God with the things that they do, how they do them and when they do them. Because that's what I want to do as a father and as a husband.
I'm really glad you mentioned God, because I've always told people that when they vet a candidate, they should find out if that candidate knows that there is a God and that they're not him. Yeah. Now, talk about the way that your faith informs you as a football player, and why that's important to you in a president.
Well, your faith is who you are. first and foremost. A lot of times we look at faith and say, how do you incorporate your faith in your politics? Or how do you incorporate it in your profession as a football player? No, I'm a Christian first, and I play football. You're a Christian first, and you work for the press. You're a Christian first, and so you are guided by those principles of justice, of love, of caring for other people, of putting other people before yourself, of being a servant, of being a leader, all those things. And so for me, as I play football, my job is to glorify God in everything that I do. And so when I go out there on a football field, I play football hard. I hit people as hard as I can. I catch the ball. I execute my game plan because God has given me that ability to do so, and I want to glorify Him by my work. And the same thing for a man that's running for president. His primary objective, if he is a believer, it would be to glorify God with what he's doing. Whether it's being a president or whatever he's doing, his job's at the utmost to glorify God in his politics.
Well, now, being a Christian, are we really tough enough to take on this arena? You know, I think that people have the false impression that Christians are somehow weak and not able to really get in the fight because our principles maybe prohibit us. If we're supposed to turn the other cheek and love our neighbor and those kinds of things, how can we still be tough and be principled?
Well, principled and tough go hand in hand. That's what being tough is being principled. It's making decisions not based on emotions, but on principle. A lot of times when you don't even feel like making those decisions because your heart may be going in another way, you have a standard before you that is unchanging, and you adhere to that standard. And you are tough because you're able to make a decision not based on you and necessarily what you want or what anybody else wants, but because of those convictions and because of what God has laid forth for us as a blueprint for how we make decisions. When you are guided by something bigger than yourself, and you answer to something bigger than yourself, you can make decisions that are bigger than yourself.
I have a friend, K. Carl Smith, and he founded the Frederick Douglass Republicans because he said that most times people don't really understand what a Republican's about. And Frederick Douglass was one of those lifelong Republicans. Are you a Republican or are you just a Ben Carson fan?
I am Benjamin Watson first, and I have ideas about certain issues, and many of them align with the Republican Party, and honestly, some of them align with the Democratic Party. Again, for me, it's about the person running, and that's why I'm here just in support of my friend, Dr. Carson, because I know the type of person that he is. He's proven it. Just the way that he deals with issues and the way he contemplates things, and just his wisdom is something that he's imparted to me. I mean, he's inspired me by the way he carries himself and the things that he's done.
Now, I had a ride in an Uber car today with a fellow named Pastor Gear, and I'm going to give a shout out to Pastor Gear here in Greenville, South Carolina. And I said, what's important to you in a president? And he said that he's a Christian. Mm-hmm. That is very telling, and I think it's very telling about this primary here, this caucus here in North Carolina. We have an electorate here that they're saying that the evangelical vote is about 60% of the voters out there, and yet do you think that we're going to be able to appeal to them by the time they go into their caucus on Saturday?
Well, it's important to me as a believer that someone is elected that's a believer. I don't think that a believer is the only one that can be a good president. I also think that somebody who is a believer may not be a good president. They don't go hand in hand necessarily. And so I think that the voters of South Carolina will kind of have in their mind who they want, the principles that they want. And I'm from this state, went to high school here. People here are educated. They understand the issues. And they're going to show up and do that. And that's who they're going to elect.
Benjamin Watson, thank you so much for being our guest here on Conservative Commandos radio show. I want to tell our listeners how they can follow you. If they want to know what's Benjamin Watson doing tomorrow and how did he get to be such a good dad of 5 kids, tell us how we can do that.
You can follow me on Twitter at Benjamin S. Watson. Benjamin S. is in Seth. So at Benjamin S. Watson. And also I wrote a book recently at Watson Book. My book is really about race. It's about racial reconciliation, if you want to term it that, but also about how faith plays a role in how we treat each other racially in this country. Also on Facebook, Benjamin S. Watson as well.
Tell us the name of your book.
My book is called Under Our Skin. Under Our Skin, getting free from the fears and frustrations that divide us. So it's about getting real about race. It's about getting free from those fears. It's about addressing all those things that we go through and things that we've seen so much on TV lately.
Do you think that President Obama has done his share of making sure that we don't get under each other's skin and maybe that we look beyond our skin?
I think that President Obama has done as good a job as he's able. I can't sit there and say he's been malicious, but I can say that race has come to the forefront because he's been in an office. And when you have a black man in office, people talk about it more. And so that's where we stand. And I don't know if he means to do anything, but I can say that he wants the best for this country. I may not go about it the same way that he's done it.
Thank you so much, Benjamin Watson, for being our guest here on Conservative Commandos Radio.
Thank you much.
Now we're just about any time. I want to thank you so much for sitting in today as my co-host, bringing great guests to our radio show today. 30 seconds, final thoughts?
Just that I'm going to try and get us some more great guests, too, so people should keep tuning in to Conservative Commandos radio show.
All right. With that, we'll let her go, but for right now, we're out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free. Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know?
Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.